My name is Chris Buscher, and on this episode of Unsafe Honesty, we are finally going to talk about 10 things that I love about Brazil. Now, many of you who have watched the previous video to this, part 1, which was 10 things that I hate about Brazil, have been asking me to make the video that I promised to make, 10 things I love about Brazil. And I made that video back in May, and so it's been a few months now already. It's been a little bit more than 4 months, and I wanted to explain the reason why. Number one, I was in kind of a transitional period. I was actually traveling a lot and ultimately moved here to the United States. So I'm no longer living in Brazil. And so I finally got myself situated, and I'm ready to start making YouTube videos on a more regular basis. So I want to thank everybody for continuing to watch this channel and engaging. Thank you guys for your comments. And another reason why I didn't rush to make that video that I promised was I was having too good of a time actually reading a lot of those comments by a lot of Brazilians who really got angry by the truth. So if you're one of those Brazilians that got angry by the truth or tried to call me a liar about some of the things I said, you can easily Google any of the things that I said and it'll back it up. I can see in a few of those comments I had to educate a few different people who thought they knew what they were talking about, but ultimately they really didn't. Not that I know more than other people, it just before I make some of these videos, I do research some of the things to make sure that I wasn't told wrong or whatnot. But without further ado, I want to get into the 10 things that I love about Brazil because I do love Brazil. Number one on my list, the country of Brazil itself. I love Brazil. I don't have anything against Brazil. I know I made a video called 10 Things I Hate About Brazil, and those 10 things I stand behind. Okay, those 10 things I absolutely hate about Brazil. I could do those types of videos about any country in the world. I'm sure there are things here in the United States that I absolutely hate. It's just the way that it is. But I love Brazil. Brazil has so many unique things, and I'm going to be talking about those things in this video. But the country itself, the country's history, the country's present, and the country's future, it is unique. I've spent so much time in so many other countries, and Brazil is the only other country besides beautiful America that I would actually even want to live in. And I have lived in Brazil. I lived in Brazil for over 7 years, and then plus some short-term trips before that. So I've spent quite a bit of time in Brazil in a lot of different states, and I've gotten to know the people, I've gotten to know a lot of the things, and I would probably return there again someday. There are so many different unique things about Brazil, including the fact that my wife and children are Brazilian. My wife is 100% Brazilian. She's a citizen of Brazil, lived in Brazil her whole life until recently. My 2 children, Noah Thomas and Anna Claire, they were both born in Brazil. So they are Brazilian citizens, but they are also American citizens because we went and got all their documents finalized not too long ago. So I have a strong connection to Brazil, and I absolutely love the country. It's just that video that was previous, that were the things that I hate about Brazil. That doesn't mean that I don't love Brazil. So number 1 on my list, I love the country of Brazil. Number 2 on my list, kind people. Now, I could say anything I want about Brazilian people. I've met so many different types of people, but one thing that I cannot deny is that Brazilian people are some of the most kindest people I've ever met in my life. I've spent, a lot of time in other countries and obviously in the United States, and I've gotten to know different cultures and whatnot, but there's something unique about Brazilian people. Not everybody, of course, keep in mind. But for the great majority, you are going to find some of the nicest, kindest people that will give you the shirt off their back. They will do anything they can. They're in a really nice way. They got like this childlike innocence to them. Not everybody, there's always rotten apples in every bunch of apples. But for the most part, some of my best friends, some of the people that are most important to me, even some of you who are watching this video, you know who you are. You guys are some of the kindest people I've ever met in the world, and I wouldn't trade my time with you for anything. So, like I said, number 2, really, really kind people. Number 3 on my list, it's a Christian nation. I mean, what type of Christian pastor, missionary, or evangelist, or even, a believer in Jesus Christ wouldn't be excited about Brazil being a Christian nation? Now, when I say Brazil being a Christian nation, keep in mind Brazil has so many different faiths in there, including, spirit, quote unquote, spiritual and macumba and all these other different ones. But me as a believer, man, I get so excited about the fact that Brazil is a Christian nation. They have so many different wonderful things about Christianity inside there, including a replica of Solomon's Temple. They got different states that are named directly after Christian things, like, for example, Salvador. Salvador is Savior. Espírito Santo, that's another state. It means Holy Spirit, and that's one of the most beautiful states out there. There are so many different wonderful things with Christianity going on in Brazil. It's one of the fastest growing evangelical Christian nations out there. Evangelical Christianity is rapidly growing in Brazil. Preaching inside of Brazilian churches has always been a great thing for me. I love how the people are hungry for the Word of God. I love being able to minister the Word of God inside of churches there. So, bottom line, Brazil, good for you for being a Christian nation. You guys have morals in a lot of different ways, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, number 3, being a Christian nation. God bless. Number 4 on my list, food. Now, if you have ever been to what's called a churrasco or churrascaria in the United States, you're going to pay like, I don't know, $75 or more just for kind of a taste of what it actually is like. It's not going to be really that authentic no matter where you go, but man, you go down to Brazil, you are going to get blessed by food. The majority of food, I mean, if you would take it all, 90% of it, yeah, it's not that great. But that 10% is so special. I'm talking about things like churrasco, açaí, the different meats, feijoada. Let's talk about churrasco first. Churrasco. Now, so here in the United States, we do a lot of buffets. And you know what Americans do? We go up and we walk to the food, and then we take a few plates and sit down. We go back up again. Brazil does it correct. They have all the people sit down and the food comes to you. It is so unique. And they shave off little pieces of meat for you, all different types of cuts of meat and of different animals. So you got pig, you got lamb, you got cow, you got all types of animals being slaughtered there, and they cut off pieces of meat that freshly came off of the grill. So it's piping hot, and it is just delicious. Loved me churrasco, and I can't wait to have some again someday. The next one would be acai. Now, before I even went to Brazil, I was hearing like a news report or something where they were talking about like this super fruit that was from the Amazon jungle that we could get in pill form here called acai or acaia or whatever, and all these doctors were trying to explain what it was, and they had no idea how to pronounce it. And I went to Brazil, and I learned that it's pronounced acai, and that it's just like frozen fruit from the Amazon jungle. I mean, they'd make it in juice and stuff, but the most common way is to eat it just like you would ice cream, where they just take the fruit, crush it up, and freeze it, and that's how you eat it. You don't have to add sugar or anything to it. Sometimes they would do like sweetened condensed milk and granola, which really gets good, but I'm telling you, acai is delicious and it's super healthy. If you've never heard of it, look it up because it's that good. The next thing I wanted to pinpoint on there was feijoada. Now, feijoada it looks ugly. I've brought down a lot of Americans many different times, and even my first few times looking at feijoada, there was no way I wanted to eat it, but I ate it just to be nice. Didn't even really like it at first, but I'm telling you, I grew to love feijoada. Feijoada is a common meal that's served in Brazil. I believe it's on Tuesdays and Saturdays or Thursdays and Saturdays. Don't quote me on that. It's one of the two. But Saturday definitely for sure. And any real party time, feijoada is a real common meal. What it is it's different pieces of sausage, different pieces of pork rib, carne seca, which would be like kind of like a dried meat, and that was dried out in salt. And funny story with that, the first time my wife tried to make me feijoada, she forgot to rinse the salt out, and so the feijoada tasted horrible. But my wife doesn't really watch my YouTube videos that much, so she's not going to see this. But if you do, I love you, Jessica. I love you with all my heart, and you cook amazing food today. But feijoada originally started out as food for slaves, supposedly. That's just what people say. there was just really no record of it. So basically what happened was slaves would go to their masters, get a bunch of different table scraps and stuff like that, and then they would bring it all together, put it all inside this big bowl or big pot, and make feijoada. And next thing you know, we got delicious, delicious food. Pizza is also another thing I didn't mention that I would like to mention. Brazilian pizza is delicious. They have some of the weirdest pizzas I've ever heard of, like putting corn on your pizza. I mean, some weird stuff, and it actually turns out good. My wife's favorite pizza would be frango com catupiry, which would be chicken and catupiry cheese or like cream cheese. I personally like pepperoni and mushroom, just like American pizza, but I ate all the different Brazilian pizzas and absolutely loved it. If you ever go to Brazil, stay away from McDonald's. Go to real Brazilian food, and you will not be sorry. It is delicious. Number 5, the drinks. Man, Brazil has so many wonderful drinks out there. So, you know how in most countries, if you want to go to a restaurant, you normally order like a soft drink, like a pop or something like that, or if you order a juice, man, this thing's been processed over and over again. Brazil, because it's in a real tropical area, for the most part, depending on the state, they do a lot of fresh juice. So every time that I would go out to a restaurant or anything like that, I wouldn't be ordering, Coca-Cola or Pepsi or any of those other ones for the most part. I would go right for the juice. It was the first time in my life I ever had cashew juice. Which most people, they think cashew is just the nut because that's what we normally get, but it is a delicious fruit. Picking cashews right off the tree, eating that fruit, drinking the juice, all these different types of fruits that I would have never imagined making juice from. For example, watermelon. Man, watermelon juice is delicious. And I come from Iowa, which has so much watermelon, but still I never thought to make juice out of it. Maybe I'm just strange, who knows, but man, juice is wonderful, and they do it all natural, and they would just, juice it up right in front of you or right there in the restaurant. They don't buy juice normally from a grocery store like we would around here. I mean, you can, but it wasn't common. The common way was fresh juice all the time. The different drinks. For example, one of my favorite drinks, because you can get almost anything down there except Dr. Pepper, and a few other ones that aren't very popular, like root beer. Man, I really missed root beer while living in Brazil. Couldn't get it the whole time. But that's okay because we had so many other drinks to choose from, including Guaraná. Guaraná, if you never had Guaraná, it's made from, the Guaraná berries, and it's just really delicious. I don't really know how to explain it to you other than it's a really good drink. It gives you a lot of energy if you really want some. And if you go to, like in the north, like Maranhão or some of the other states, you can actually get Jesus or Jesus Guaraná. So they make a pop just about Jesus, which is cool. I don't really enjoy it, to be honest. I thought it tasted kind of disgusting, kind of like bubble gum. But I really enjoyed seeing Jesus on the label, so that's good. Another drink that, we got to talk about is the coffee. Brazilian coffee is strong. It is probably the strongest coffee I've ever had in the world. In fact, after, being down there so long and drinking nothing but Brazilian coffee, came back to the States, and it was like drinking tea almost, because the coffee here was just so weak compared to Brazilian coffee. Brazilian coffee, I think the first time I drank a couple pots of it, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And so I limited myself and stopped drinking coffee after like 10 o'clock in the morning. But Brazilian coffee is delicious in some ways. Some people don't like it because it's too strong. But if you ever get the opportunity to try Brazilian coffee, you will not be disappointed. It'll be a great experience for you. So that's right. Number 5 on my list was drinks. Number 6 on my list is going to have to be the weather. I lived in the north where it's very tropical, closer to the equator, and I lived down in São Paulo for a long time as well, where it's a lot colder, but you can't beat the weather down there. They never get winter. They claim to have winter, and when I was in São Paulo, they talked one time it actually snowed, but it was just kind of like a little sprinkle of snow, just something really small. And the moment it touched the ground, it was gone. But all of the Brazilians, they freaked out. Like, they would put on their snow boots, their winter jackets, their hats, and just went crazy with it. They've never seen snow. Sometimes, I guess, in some parts it does actually snow, but, kind of like snow in Texas. It just doesn't happen. So the coldest I think I ever got down there was, about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. It was cold enough where I wanted a winter jacket, and it was just annoying. But honestly, I started to miss snow, which is kind of strange, and I'm actually excited to see snow again for the first time in several years. That'll be happening here in a few more months. But in the north, man, we had our organic garden going 12 months out of the year. Could grow some awesome different fruits. Passion fruit, just wonderful. The climate in Brazil, just wonderful, wonderful weather. Any time of the year, it's great to go to Brazil and have a vacation. Some of the best climate in the world, in my opinion. Number 7, the beaches and the land. So I know I talked a little bit about this when I talked about the climate, but I want to go ahead and talk about it a little bit more. Brazil has some of the most beautiful beaches in the whole world, in my opinion. I've been to a lot of different states and went to a lot of their different beaches, and I never really found a beach that I was disappointed in except Rio de Janeiro. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, if you go to Bahia, you go anywhere in the north. I used to live in Maceió, which had some amazing, amazing beaches. Some of the most beautiful in the whole world. You could just see crystal clear waters, white sand. I mean, it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Some beaches that nobody was around. I mean, if you get on my Facebook or Instagram, you'll see some pictures of some beaches I was at, and I was never really like a tourist type of guy, but you just really couldn't help it. You just driving along, going from one place to another. You stop and you see this awesome beach. You just got to get out and enjoy it. The water was really warm. Could find some different seashells, and it's just a real fun experience going to any of the beaches and getting yourself coconut water and then crack it open for you right there. Just absolutely delicious. Inside the land wise, I have an organic farm out in Juquitiba area. And so that's in Sao Paulo in the little foothills there. Real beautiful land. It's all natural, all organic out there. Just the whole area because it was recently deeded from the government to the people, and so sold privately. So the land still has, it's what we call virgin land for the most part. There was 2 owners before me, is all, but just real natural land. Being from Iowa, I'm used to seeing a lot of farmland and everything, and land that's been, worked for, a couple hundred years, something like that. And down there, it's jungle, and so it's real beautiful seeing all the jungle and everything, and seeing the animals that come with it. Seeing a toucan bird while you're eating breakfast outside on your porch. Just real wonderful stuff with that. The land, so many different things. There's mountains, there's jungle, there's ocean, there's all types of stuff. Just a real wonderful, actually, to be completely honest, 2 of my favorite states, Bahia and Espírito Santo, just because of the land. Such beauty in the land. In Sao Paulo, inside the city, I know some people are going to hate me for saying this, and I think Sao Paulo is very ugly. The state, I think, is beautiful. Inside the city, I'm a country guy. I really don't like, the concrete jungle, and so that's why I don't really like Sao Paulo. But once you get outside of the city, there's some beautiful land. Just wonderful, wonderful land. Number 8 on my list, how they love Americans. For me, this it went back and forth for me because the people down there, they would seem to give like a benefit towards Americans in one aspect, and then in another aspect, it was like they'd take advantage of me. So it's kind of hit or miss with this, but I did really, really love the fact that they loved my country. And I don't know if it's necessarily that they, loved America like they worshiped America or something like that, but they just had a real respect for it. You could see that America really influenced them as they were growing up, and the fact that they loved, Disney, really helped in my favor as well. But here in the United States, especially when someone comes from another country, usually we don't really have a whole lot of respect for their country or their culture. Those of you who are watching, you know what I'm talking about. Down there, they loved the American culture. In fact, my English school there, we made everything about the United States because it really helped us with our marketing and keeping our students, and they really loved learning about the American culture. I taught them about Thanksgiving, the true history of it, and then the way we celebrate and all these other things. And we would do like a Thanksgiving meal, and they just thought it was amazing and they loved it. Apple pie, they really loved apple pie as well. But you know, the American culture and how they liked it really worked out in my benefit. It made me feel comfortable, and I really like how they appreciated my culture, where I was from, and English. They loved hearing English. I'd be walking down towards the subway or something like that, and I would be speaking to someone in English, and every single person would look at me like, you know, because their eyes would just be tuned towards it, and they thought English was beautiful. Not everybody. Some people, you know, didn't like English, but it wasn't like here in the United States. If someone is speaking another language, people sometimes will get angry or something like that. Not me. I don't get that way, but some people do, and you can see it irritates them. Down there, they loved it. So you know, that's a reason why I love Brazil. Number 9 on my list, the Amazon jungle. I mean, who doesn't love the Amazon jungle? I remember the very first time I went to the Amazon jungle. It was on the Colombian side, of course, but then I also entered in the Brazilian side and also the Peruvian side. But you know, the Amazon jungle is something that's famous throughout the entire world. It's always in the news. We're trying to preserve it and all these other different things. Finding all these different new species in there, people groups in there. So many exciting things going on with the Amazon jungle. And if you didn't know, Brazil has a huge portion of the Amazon jungle. So that's a great reason why I love Brazil and their efforts to preserving the Amazon jungle. Number 10 on my list, the mixed races. So without getting into too much detail about this, let me just explain. So here in the United States, especially in the Midwestern area, you know, we're kind of a little bit slow to all of the progress and everything. And I remember a time when, people would marry just within their own races, and then the generation before me, it seemed like, you know, they started, you know, mixing things up, and then my generation, with me especially, my wife, she's not white. She is, I guess you'd call them Latina, but she's really, you know, Brazilian people. They're kind of their own thing. So let me kind of explain why I say it that way. In Brazil, it seems that they did a much better job of mixing races a lot faster than in other places. So, like when you just look at my wife's heritage, for example, so you look at her, I think it's her grandfather or great grandfather, her great grandfather or grandfather, I'm not sure which one, was a black man, and then she has some natives in her family and people from Italy and Portugal, and they all just kind of mixed to make her what she is today. Absolutely beautiful. And I would love to say that she's unique in that way, but in all reality, there is so many people like that in Brazil that you almost have your own race called Brazilian. Because it's just a mixture of so many different things, and what came out was absolutely beautiful. I wouldn't trade my wife for anything in the world. She is perfect in every single way. Um, it just they mix really well. You know, here in the United States, it seems like, you know, you go to a big city, you got on this side you got all of like Latino people, on this side you got different white people, on this side you got first generation immigrants, you got all these different heritages, and you just look at our history of the United States, and you'll see that that's pretty common. You know, you got German neighborhoods, Dutch neighborhoods, you got all these different neighborhoods and everything, but down there, it just mixed. It's mixed, and it's done well. It's like the melting pot that we've been trying in the United States. And it just worked out perfect. You don't really see a whole lot of racism down there as well. Now, I'm sure racism exists everywhere, so don't get me wrong about that. But from my personal experience while being down there in Brazil and traveling around, racism wasn't as big of a thing as you would think it would be. And they would always ask me, you know, why are Americans so racist and everything? Because they would see things on TV which were just, for the most part, blown way out of proportion and everything. So that there's a real bad image of Americans. But yeah, we have racism in the United States, of course. But down there, it seemed like they got past that, you know, for the most part. But so I really like and love how everything mixed down there really well, and they came together to make the Brazilian race, if you want to call it that. And I know, you know, with my list here that some people might get offended by some of the things I said, and just keep in mind that most of the things I said here are my opinion. This is an opinion-based video. All of these 10 things, you can make a list of so many different things that you loved about Brazil when you visited there, or if you are Brazilian, you could make a whole list of things that you love about Brazil. Remember, this video here and the video in front of me, these are my opinion, and it's my honest opinion. This list here are 10 things that I love about Brazil. And so in conclusion to my list, with all the things that I mentioned, I want to say first and foremost, I want to thank you for watching this video. I want to thank you for watching the previous video in this. And if you've never gone to Brazil, I encourage you to go visit there. You might like things that I didn't like. You might have a completely different personality than me. Brazil is a very unique country. It's a very beautiful country. Everyone has their own problems, of course. But I do believe in the future of Brazil, and to be completely honest, someday in my future, I do plan to return there. Maybe not to live there, but to visit, of course. I have business interests and everything in there. Brazil is kind of like my second home. It always will be. My family, a lot of my family is Brazilian. My children are half Brazilian, and so they need to grow up knowing both cultures as well. So I encourage you, figure out more about Brazil, learn more about Brazil, and remember, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, be sure to leave it in the comments below. Thank you, and God bless.